today that there was an announcement in this incredibly long-running dispute between the credit card networks and issuing banks and the merchants. This is a lawsuit that, if you can believe it, was filed in 2005, alleging antitrust by the networks, Visa and MasterCard, and setting swipe fees for the merchants. And, just a mere 20 years later, they're getting around to sorting this out. So, both sides are claiming sort of victory here. There's sort of headlines running around about, merchants going to save $30 billion on their swipe fees over the next 5 years. So there's probably some truth to that. But the reality is the way the deal is, or the settlement is structured, is that it carries, decent sized penalty for the credit card side of the equation, but really on only a temporary basis. So there's requirements that card fees be lowered by 4 basis points for every merchant minimum for a period of 3 years, and that over a similar period that all swipe fees in the aggregate are lowered by around 7 basis points. But then after that, those requirements end, and there are no restrictions on the network's abilities to raise pricing after that. So, it's going to be sort of an interesting dynamic where, you get a little bit of temporary relief, and then, things kind of get back to the way they were. The other element that might be, in my mind, a little bit more interesting is with respect to steering. So, the easiest way to think about steering is if you go to the gas station and you buy gas, many gas stations will advertise 2 different prices. One is the price that everybody pays, and then the other is this lower price that if you pay with cash, you can save typically 10 cents on the gallon or something along those lines. Now that's an example of steering. So basically the merchant, in this case the gas station, is steering you, the consumer, to pay in cash, because it would save them, usually for gas stations, around 3% or so on the swipe fee, if you were to pay them in cash instead. So they're happy to pass, that 10 cents a gallon back to you because it's less than they'd be saving on the swipe fee. So the idea with this settlement is that merchants have long been prohibited from steering, meaning that at the point of sale, whether you're in a store or online, merchants have restrictions on them in terms of steering you to use one form of payment versus another. And so one of the elements of this settlement is to do away with most of those steering provision restrictions. So what might be interesting would be, a scenario maybe down the road where, you see certain merchants starting to sort of potentially incentivize you, to use one form of payment versus another. This could really go a number of different ways. There's really only 4 networks. There's Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. And so what's interesting is that, American Express is more expensive than Visa and MasterCard already. So it's hard to imagine many merchants wanting to steer people toward American Express. The cheaper merchant, or network rather, out there is Discover. So that is kind of interesting potentially, where obviously Capital One is in the process of trying to acquire Discover. So that might be kind of an interesting element, is that, maybe in 3, 4, 5 years time, there's some sort of dynamic out there where, you go to buy something and check out, and, you're just frequently seeing these offers where you can save maybe 1% on your purchase or something if you use Discover instead of, your Visa or MasterCard, something along those lines. So anyway, it's sort of an interesting added upside optionality for the Capital One Discover, which are both best idea longs.
Hey there, Hedgeye Nation, or if you're not part of Hedgeye Nation, thanks for watching Hedgeye on YouTube. If you haven't already, make sure to click on the button below there. Subscribe to our YouTube page. You can also follow the link in the description to our website to get even more great investing content.